Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for this screening of Unapologetic. I had the pleasure of talking to director Ashley O'Shea last week on our radio program, and tonight we're really lucky to be joined by two other women responsible for this film. With us tonight is Morgan Elise Johnson. She produced Unapologetic, and Morgan is an independent filmmaker and a publisher. She's worked on a number of documentaries, including Across the Line. It was a film that premiered at the Sundance Film Festival's New Frontiers exhibit a few years ago. She also has co-founded The Tribe. It's a digital publication focused on the Black experience in Chicago. And Morgan Johnson, welcome to you. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Also here with us is Bella BAHHS, of course, an activist in Chicago, described as a raptivist, uses her art, of course, in her advocacy work, as you've seen, if you've seen the film. And Bella BAHHS, welcome to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I wish we could all be together in person, but this will have to do.
Yeah, this will have to do. Morgan, I wanted to begin with you. I've talked with Ashley a little bit about how she started this project, and I wanted to get your sense of those early days when you were with Ashley, talking with Ashley as you were collecting tape and making these observations about the community there in Chicago and the organizing being done. Tell us what you were seeing and what you were thinking this film would be about as you in those early days.
Well, Ashley was going about this, as a warrior by herself, okay, like in an internship program and at a Diverse Voices in Docs program at Cartemquin. And around this time, I was making my way back to Chicago with the mission to start a company called The Tribe, which I now own, a publication. And once I got back to Chicago, the film community was like, what is your next film going to be? We need you to get into documentaries, and we know which one that you need to hop on right now. And it turned out to be Unapologetic in its earliest forms. And Cartemquin Films, they're like a documentary powerhouse here in Chicago. They kept nudging me and saying, you need to meet Ashley, you need to meet Ashley. And we had actually met before. Ashley and I both graduated from Northwestern University. I'm a couple of years her senior, but yeah, we had ran into each other before. And then she sent me the demo to Unapologetic as she was fundraising. And even though I had no intention of hopping on a film, right as I was planning to start a company and a publication, I was drawn to the characters. So the first thing I saw was like, you have some compelling characters. I mean, how can you look at footage of Bella BAHHS and not be drawn to it? So I'm just like, okay. And I ended up writing her paragraphs worth of notes in an email, even though I was saying I wasn't going to be a part of this project, but I was kind of in it from the jump. And then, yeah, I hopped on as a producer, helping to guide the film. But yeah, I really have to credit Ashley for just seeing the action going on and picking up a camera. That was all her.
Bella, what did you think about, I'm not sure, did it take any convincing on the part of Ashley and Morgan to have you participate, or were you interested in that? Were you suspicious? I mean, how were you thinking about the role that you might play in a film like this?
Yeah, so I didn't know, no one knew in the beginning that it would be this film, right? We kind of thought it would be like a 20-minute something, 10-minute something. It wouldn't be that deep, right? But I definitely wouldn't have agreed early on. Like, yeah, you could follow me around for 5 years. Like, that was so it really did come about that way. And for me, yeah, at the time I was skeptical because I'm on the front lines. I'm involved in radical organizing, right? So for me, everybody I looked at like they was potentially the feds. This was potentially COINTELPRO, okay? And J. Edgar Hoover and them, they got a little smart now. They did put a Black woman in a camp. They try to
yeah.
camera right in front of you. You're gonna be real comfortable. Like, so it was all, I was kind of at arm's length with everybody until like it took the whole time really for me to be convinced. The whole all 5 years of the project, I was still being convinced throughout it. But it was something about Ashley's connection to my mother really that made me trust her and made me open up a lot more. Like my mama is really not trusting. If y'all saw the film, y'all know my mother went to prison. So you think I'm paranoid about people, my mama, that's where I get it from. So for her to really open up to Ashley and to Morgan, it really made me like, okay, these are some people we can trust with our story.
What did your mom see in Ashley and Morgan, do you think?
We read energy well. Her better than me sometimes, but like you know, our mothers always tell you like, yeah, those friends good for you. Don't be around them, like that type of. So she really just has that discernment, and my mama really is really particular about me, right? Like she don't like too many people too close to me, so she was really like, no, she has a good spirit, she has a good heart, like I really like her. And that's not common for my mama. So I was like, oh, okay. So what she saw part, y'all know, y'all probably gotta get my mama on the Q&A so she can answer that for real. But it was something about Ashley that my mama really took to her, like from the jump. And my mama is really don't let people around her with a camera, don't answer questions for people, none of that. Like, so everybody the feds to us. So for her to open up to Ashley, it was like, oh, okay, well, okay. Okay, we can do this. I could tell you, I could invite you in a little bit more. The things that I didn't even want to put in the film, my mom was like, yeah, let her see that. Like, this is where we can trust that story with. Right now, my mama won't ask you to help her write a book. So it's just
You know, I'm not sure if people know, but the BAHHS in Bella BAHHS' Black Ancestors Here Healing Society. And there's this interesting kind of contrast in the film I wanted to ask you, Morgan, and you, Bella, about. And that is, on one hand, Bella, you talk about your heritage, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your mother, how you've always been around strong Black women who raise children and communities on their own. And there's the importance of heritage and this wisdom from the past. But then there's also that scene where you kind of, Bella, take on the older generation, say that the younger generation is not being taught to be Black from this older generation. So on one hand, you're turning to them for wisdom. On the other hand, you're kind of giving them a bit of a critique. Would you just talk a little bit about both of that? Because we see both of that in the film. Maybe Bella, you start first.
Okay. Okay. Because okay, I said that older Black people don't teach us how to be Black. Is that what I said?
Well, no, there was that scene in the film.
Black, yeah, and that scene with Timothy Black where that we spliced together. It was just a very short,
just a brief moment.
Snippet that we took. You know, we probably needed a more context around it, but maybe tell us more about that situation when you're talking to the elders and holding them accountable.
Yeah.
Okay, that was an interesting way to put it. Oh, that's an interesting clip to take. Okay, because I'm like, what? I said what?
And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it did seem like you were holding the elders accountable. So
so I guess like, okay, it's Black History Month right now, right? And a lot of the things that we teach about Black history is still a lot of white history, right? Like we not like, if anything, I'm saying like there's so much rich history, like, and there's so much about what it means to be Black, like, and not running away from that, and then how expansive Black is, like what Black actually means. Like, it's so many people who don't even, coming up as a kid, as kids don't want to be associated with Black because they don't know what that means different than what it means to white people, right? So Black is so expansive, and then like right now it's still a lot of people, like even if we talk about the Black experience in Black History Month, right, it's so much about Blackness rooted in chattel slavery in America, right? And it's so many Black people in America at this point, like because of what Black descendants of slaves in this country did, there are Black people from all over the world. But what we did in the civil rights movement, there are Black people all over the world in America right now. So we don't even really have an understanding of what Black means, what our accomplishments did for what Black means, right? And how we continue to build on that, and what it means. I guess what I was saying was like, yeah, we don't really have a strong teaching of what it means for us to be Black in community with each other, and what all of our accomplishments mean to Black people. Like, so how we can build the power that we need to build. Everything that we accomplished in the civil rights movement is impacting Black people all over the world right now, right? And it's like we don't have a real understanding of that power and all the sacrifices and all the assassinations and all the assassinations of character, like everything that went into us being in this moment right now. Like, it's just kind of like, oh, we was slaves, now we're not slaves. Barack Obama was president, everything got fixed right then. Trump came in, messed some stuff up for everybody, but it messed it up for everybody. It wasn't just us. It was, you know what I'm saying? It's just like we have a lot, we have a lot of rich history to examine in this country. And I think if I was saying anything to the elder generation, it was like, American history is going to tell the story that they want to tell, right? Like, we cannot leave our history, our education, our moving forward up to the American education system, American political system. It has to be from us. It has to be a rich oral tradition we have to keep. And I know it's been a lot of things that have intercepted our ability to really teach our own communities. But at the same time, I guess I feel like we gotta hold ourselves accountable at some point in some respect to say, how do we move forward in these conditions with everything else that they have pinned against us? But we can only get that from ourselves. Like, no one else, no white person, no white history book, no white teacher, nobody can teach me how to be a Black woman in this nation, except for Black women in this nation. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, if anything, I'm saying to the elder generation, like, we need to lead, right? The youth have to lead the movement, but the elders have to guide the movement. And if anything, I feel like we've missed a little bit of that guidance, and I don't want to, I'm not disrespecting the elder generation or anything like that.
But disrespecting the elders at all. But, you know, one thing that I see as being a publisher is that every generation, the next generation kind of carries the torch, but the older generation like judges, like looks down, and it's just like, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. But a lot of times we don't have access to the teachings to lead movements, or we've filtered and sanitized that information. So we gonna learn about the Panthers, but y'all don't want to tell us about the sexism and the harm, you know, within those movements. And we need to know those things so that we can learn from it and grow from it. Or the elders will look at a publication or what I'm trying to do and say, we like what you're doing, but can you only show this version of Blackness? We don't like the ghetto. We don't like, you know, that scene of us going to the gang picnic with Bella. You know, somebody is going to tell me that, like, that's not the right representation, because a lot of times we're looking to the white gaze and like how that our message is going to be perceived by white people, you know. So we do have some elders who think like that. That's the type of critique that I get sometimes from the elders, and I try to push back on that.
I wanted to ask you, Morgan, about one of the things you wanted to do with the tribe is, as you've put it, reshape the narrative of Black Chicago. Explain what that means. What's the narrative in place, and what's the way you want to alter it or speak to it? And I want to ask Bella a few questions about that too. But Morgan, talk a little bit about the tribe, what you're trying to accomplish with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started the tribe in February 2017. That's no coincidence. That's when Donald Trump took office. And Chicago was all of a sudden on the international stage. It wasn't just with Trump, but with President Barack Obama. Chicago, the narrative of Chicago became elevated all over the world and became a political talking point. If somebody wanted to attack the president or give a critique to the president, a lot of times they would be like, well, what about Chicago? Like, what about Chicago became a phrase? Like, what about the so-called Black on Black crime going on in Chicago? What about the failed Democratic leaders in Chicago? Before that, you know, when I thought of Chicago, it would be, all right, you know, the Bulls and, you know, Al Capone or those type of gangsters and stuff like that. It wasn't this dominant narrative of so-called Black on Black crime and Chicago being the murder capital of the world. But when I was in college, there was a murder that took place of a young man named Darian Albert on the south side of Chicago in Roseland. And it was the very, very first viral death that I had seen, or I think, I want to say ever, but it was the first one that was like raised to a platform where it was like a national conversation. And I went out to Roseland when I was at Northwestern and started to film and document and talk about that, you know, with students at my school. And I realized that the media goes to Black communities to exploit the harm that these communities have faced. A lot of times, a Black community may not see a media truck until somebody has died. And I realized that when I would go into communities, a lot of times community members would ask me what happened, who got shot, who died. So I was just like, there's something deeper that we need to address. And that's like trust between media and Black communities, and also taking ownership of our narratives and deciding who we are, knowing who we are, seeking truth and standing in that and owning that. And I was done with being a consumer only of media and not having a say in it. And I convinced some people I went to school with to move back to Chicago and get to work, even though we didn't have any money or anything. And we did the stories ourselves for the first year and a half until we started to raise money. And now we're 4 years in it.
Yeah. What about you, Bella? Do you, with your music, with your art, do you think about also reshaping a narrative, reworking a narrative? Do you think of it in those terms?
Absolutely. So my art is all about bridging my personal story with what's popular. So hip hop is a popular art form, right? And what's political, right? So my whole life I understand through a political lens, right? And I don't think a lot of people put their lives, their personal experiences into that perspective, but I do. I really can't help but to. When I'm born into a society that already tells me I don't deserve to be raised with my parents, right? It's my whole life is political. So because I look at my life through that lens and I create art through that lens, then every time I write a song or I write a poem, I am challenging the dominant narrative of the American experience, right? Because my experience is so drastically different than the American dream or what have you, right? So yeah, every time, like that's how I challenge the narrative. That's my alternative history book, right? Is when I write music, when I write songs.
You know, the art and music is such an important part of the film. I was wondering, Bella, what can you say in a piece of music or in a poem that you can't in a political speech? That is, like, what's different about it? I mean, beyond the sort of obvious stuff, does it reach people differently? Does it speak in a way that gets to a place in them that's different, do you think?
Absolutely. I think the most powerful thing about music is it moves us further into the conversation than we could probably get just me speaking plainly, right? Like if I put something into a song, I can reach people differently who probably wouldn't even bother to listen to me if I'm just speaking, right? But as an artist, I think I have a little more leeway, a little easier passage to get to people's hearts of a situation rather than trying to think talk logically to people, and some things is not logical, right? I can't even have a logical conversation with you, a rational conversation with you, because you only see the world through your lens. With music, you might allow yourself to see the world through my lens for 3 minutes or so, you know. So that's the power of music. That's really why I use music the way that I do. Um, and I always knew that because I knew I could say things through music that I really couldn't say in any other form, right? And I'm a writer in all senses of the word, right? So it's even like I can write things in music and get it across in a way that maybe I could write it in an article for the tribe too, right? But the same people won't read the article as the people who are gonna listen to the music, right? So it's like me trying to reach the audience I'm trying to reach. I know I could do that through hip hop. I know I can reach young people, you know what I'm saying? And I can really start to explain really big ideas, right? Like the things that I wanted my elders to explain to me that they might have dropped the ball and explain. Like I can explain that through music in a way that maybe I can't really get you to sit down and understand. I really can't get you to sit and read all the books that I've read, but I can put the information that I've gained from these books into this music and you can digest it that way.
Morgan, will you say a little bit more about the importance of art, how activism is expressed through art, in particular Bella's art, but then of course the film is framed by a spoken word piece by Iman Lauren, this poet and playwright who lives on Chicago's South Side. How important is this idea of art in the scheme of things in terms of organizing and getting people to change or pay attention?
Well, art shapes narratives. So when we were talking about like reshaping and reframing narratives, I think about that outside of like written journalism or digital journalism. I think about how our narratives framed in advertising, how our narratives framed in, you know, paintings and music and all of that, you know. When we think about reframing narratives, I always go to the example of manifest destiny, because what are we taught in school? That like this white angel was carrying the torch of righteousness and civilization. And that image pops into my head. That's an art form. You know, when we look at religious figures and like paintings and stuff, that's shaping narratives. And narratives are typically told from the point of view of those in power. So, you know, if the native nations are telling the story of manifest destiny, I don't think they would be calling it manifest destiny like America does, you know? So yeah, I think anywhere where stories are being told or described or shown, a narrative is shaping. And we want to be in all of those spaces. And I think organizers like Bella who understand that somebody who is not gonna read this certain book or, you know, do a scholarly lesson on this topic. They may watch a movie about it though. They may listen to a song about it though. So it's just about meeting people where they're at instead of judging them and saying, you need to come over here and learn this way.
Yeah. So Bella, there's this something I wanted to ask you about that you wrote in a column for the Tribe, where you said that you were, I think you said delighted, you were pleased to see the Capitol stormed on January 6th. And this is what you wrote. You wrote, it was the freedom for me, freedom from the limitations imposed on Black Americans and our co-conspirators who dared to resist fascism. And you wrote about how this to name this freedom instead of white privilege. I wanted to ask you a little bit about this piece. Why the word freedom here? And talk a little bit about what you were wanting to get at with the piece.
Yeah, because I feel like I didn't have a problem at all with the Capitol being stormed, me personally. I had a problem with why it was stormed. And I wanted to write something that really let people understand why I feel like that, right? So I am someone who engages in civil disobedience often because we don't have many options as far as Black Americans, people who are anti-fascist, people who want to see radical, revolutionary, progressive change in this country, right? Like we have to do things that we otherwise wouldn't want to do. I don't think nobody really want to go spend their time protesting and voicing dissent. Like we would like to be in a position where we agree with the people we've elected to represent us, or you know what I'm saying? So I didn't have a problem with the Capitol being stormed. I'm like, okay, yeah, somebody needed to at some point address, do some big show to address the senators in this country. That needed to happen. What I got a problem with is how it happened, who it happened with, because if we would have did that and we would have had every right to do that. I wrote in a piece about how when Hillary Clinton lost the election to Trump, like that was a reason, like right there, people should have been like, no, the Electoral College that doesn't make sense. We need to storm the Capitol. We need to let our voices be heard. We did not vote for this man. We do not want him in here, right? So I feel like, yeah, that's something I could look at and I could say, yeah, I agree with that method. I agree with that tactic. Not everything that come with it, but the fact that y'all said, okay, we're gonna let our voices be heard at the Capitol. Yeah, I agree with that. It's everything y'all stand for that I fundamentally disagree with, and that's what I wanted to let known in the piece. Like we can disagree and still learn from each other. Like I feel like it was still something to learn from seeing that display of discontent with the American Electoral College, with democracy in this nation. It was something to learn from how they could organize something like that so quickly, so bluntly, like right in the, we be having to do stuff on apps that make everything, try to not be traced by the government. We have meetings where we can't have our phones. Like we got to be very discreet and trying to plan actions and stuff so the police won't shut it down. So we know how easy it is for them to access information like that and stop protests and stop actions like that. We know all of this, and to see that level of cooperation amongst police and all that, it was just so much to learn for me about, again, what it really means to be Black in this country, and Black not just as a color, because I said any of our co-conspirators will be treated the same way, right? Black as a politic, right? So to move in Blackness as a politic, how we are met with counter-revolution versus how there was no real counter-revolutionary tactics for what happened on January 6th, right? And to like, it just showed me how fundamentally flawed this system is. And for me, that was a good thing. For me, it was like Dr. King, but the complete opposite, right? Like how Dr. King showed the nation that even if in our most peaceful protests against white supremacy, against racial injustice, how just demonic white people in power who wanted to maintain the status quo, how demonic they were. Like it was like Trump showed the exact opposite. Like no matter how violent, aggressive white people in power who want to be in power, like no matter how violent and aggressive they come, they can show it to the whole world, and at the end of the day, their leader's gonna be acquitted instead of assassinated. So it was like a necessary thing I feel like needed to happen for people who still can't see, but it's still like but maybe it wasn't, because it's still people right now who will swear up and down that they don't see a big difference, or that it's still Black Lives Matter is still a problem, and Trump is still the solution, so.
Yeah. Morgan, you published the piece. What did you think about it? It's pretty provocative. And I think the line, let me quote this line from it. She wrote, "I'm choosing nouns such as American citizens and protesters instead of white supremacists and terrorists, because I want to be shown the same respect and dignity when I engage in acts of civil disobedience." Yeah, what did you make of the piece? I just thought it was so interesting.
It needed to be said, and nobody was gonna say it but us. That's usually how things like that happen. Black people weren't surprised. I don't know if
Mm.
what everybody else was thinking, but as soon as Donald Trump was elected, and I was upset and went to my parents, and they went to bed peacefully and calmly and went to sleep because they weren't surprised. And I've we've heard in our communities that, like Black people, like we need to be prepared for war. I'm not exaggerating. Like Black people this whole time have been saying amongst ourselves, we need to be prepared for war. It could jump off at any time. And we've seen white supremacists, bearing arms openly, publicly. We can't do it. Children get shot off of BB guns, but they can go out in public. And here in Chicago, they had a rally and the police escorted them right downtown. So, like white supremacists have a fearless leader in Donald Trump. He has broken every norm, every norm. So yeah, this wasn't surprising to us, and somebody needed to say it. And the media, we have the power to frame narratives. So things like looting and stuff like that will be in reference to Black Lives Matter protests. But the police loot every time they pull somebody over. They have the power to confiscate whatever you have on your person. But since we have decided as a society that that is acceptable, we don't frame it as stealing or looting, then we don't look at it that way and it becomes permissible. So I try to like look at our coverage and say like, where are the holes? And Bella comes in and I'm like, she's going off on social media and people are getting stirred up about about what she has to say, and I immediately start engaging with her because I'm just like, there's something here that we need to explore, and we can't be afraid to explore these ideas. And it's not even a new idea. Like violence, America is violent. Like everything America has done to get to where we are has been violent, and we need to also look at how we frame violence, because the narrative of violence, because people not having homes, that's violent. It's a pandemic, and people's home, I mean, it's been freezing and it's people sleeping outside. That's violence. So we need to like think about all of those different ways that we shape narratives and not be so, I guess, struck by pieces like Bella's when they don't say like what we expect them to.
Yeah. Let me read a few questions from some people who are with us tonight. Megan wants to know, and this gets back to the question of art, Bella, and activism. She wonders, do you think organizing around music puts a different energy into the movement?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say like during the first year or two of filming Unapologetic, like even the way that Ashley was introduced to me, she saw me perform at a protest. Like I was performing at a protest in Chicago almost every day, like at least once a week or something, right? For like a whole year. So Chicago really understands that, like I think no other place in the nation, is how powerful art is and rallying people and mobilizing people, right? Because you feel something, it just takes you to a different place, right? And so absolutely, then we're inspired by music all the time, right? Like, so we would be at protests and be fired up because we listening to the same Kendrick Lamar song over and over again, right? Or we had a protest one time in Chicago where we shut down Lakeshore Drive, and all the women who were eventually arrested in this protest were dressed up as like Panthers, but like it was all inspired by Beyonce's Formation video, right? Like, and so we really have a unique understanding of art, right? And we learned that from our predecessors, right? Like we aren't the first to do this, right? The Black Panthers, we talked about art earlier, and I don't know how we ain't mentioned this then, but like the Black Panthers fashion, like that really changed the game. Like people who didn't know at all what the Black Panthers was about was intrigued at first just by looking at their uniform, like, whoa, what's to this? Like I want to know more. That's art, like that's the power of art. So we've seen it throughout across generations how art is used, how music is used, even going back to slavery, music being a tool for freedom, right? Like so, and a tool to communicate messages to get people closer to freedom. I think that's what I do with music now, is communicate messages that would allow us all to get closer to freedom.
Yeah, great. Megan, thanks for asking that. JD wants to know, how can we share this movie with their friends? How can people see it? Morgan?
Well, very, very soon I will be able to answer that question, but
Stay
we're
tuned.
yeah, stay tuned. We're
All right.
hoping to get this distributed widely to everyone who wants to see it. But for now, it's at different festivals. And if you go to unapologeticfilm.com, you can look at all of our press, all of our events, buy some merch, okay? Do all of that to support us.
Tanya wants to know, Bella, where can they find and buy your music?
I got a couple songs that's on like all streaming platforms. The bulk of my music right now is on SoundCloud. But if you wherever you listen to music, if you search Bella BAHHS, you should come up with something. But stay tuned. Morgan talked about manifestation, or no, what you talked about manifest destiny.
Yes.
Manifest Destiny, and I'm working on an album right now called Manifest Destiny, and trying to rewrite that history and that narrative of what Manifest Destiny means. So
Wow.
stay tuned for that. But
Can't wait. So I want to come back. So it seems like we're talking a lot about art. I want to come back to that spoken word piece by Iman Lauren. At the end of the film, we hear her say that it's not our sole responsibility to do all the emotional labor, and that Black women, cannot continue to be the black mules of the world. Do you think now you guys have been at this for, Morgan, this film, really has this arc of a few years. Are you guys seeing any movement? Are you seeing any change that makes you feel optimistic? Like, how are you thinking about it, like today in the scheme of things?
Absolutely. I mean, we're having a national, even international conversation about abolition. I mean, if y'all like a good podcast, listen to Ergo Radio, listen to their interview with Angela Davis, talking about how they imagine abolition, but never thought they would be alive to see it elevated to this platform that it's at now. So what we're seeing now is that uh, politicians and policymakers are adopting language that Bella BAHHS and all of them were speaking at the time of making this film. Our mayor, Lori Lightfoot, got elected off of lies and language, though, that were being used in this film. So the fact that it's, a part of a national and international conversation, and that, the UN can look at Chicago and look at America and say, Black lives do matter, and America needs to address its stuff and its treatment of Black people. I think that's definitely progress. And even like Bella said, white supremacists storming the Capitol and everybody seeing that America is not who we say we are, that's progress, because we got to face our stuff. And it's happening whether we want to or not. So
Yeah.
absolutely. And then
Bella, final word. Give us the final word.
yeah, I just was gonna chime in and say, like, yeah, we have Barack Obama saying defund the police, even though the context he said it in wasn't favorable, but you're saying defund the police. That's coming out of your mouth, right? So, and that's incredible. Trump, everybody who's talking about politics, every political candidate, presidential candidate had to talk about this because this is a hot button issue. We really pushed it to the front of the conversation. Like, you cannot ignore this. You cannot just sweep it under the rug. We can't just keep getting video after video and it not being no action, no real legislation pushes. Is the whole Senate, everybody is talking about defunding the police. Like, it has to be a conversation right now. And that's something that I can't say like Angela Davis, like how she was saying she didn't think it would happen in her lifetime. I really did think it would happen in our lifetime. I didn't think it would happen this soon, because this is fairly soon for us, right? Like, we real young in the game still, like as far as activists, as far as moving the culture a little forward. But what we've been able to do in a few years, and given the technology and everything that we have to be able to push the movement a little further, is just a beautiful thing. So I feel like there's no reason to not be hopeful, right? Like, I feel like we have shown, and that was what, 5 years of work, and then boom, and during a pandemic, right? At this time when everybody feel like it's so much despair, and it is, but it's still like everything is necessary. Everything has to happen the way it has to happen, and we always got to just keep going, right? We just got to keep going. Like, everybody has got to deal with what they got to deal with in their lifetime. In our lifetime, we dealing with some real weird things going on, but but we are being persistent, and we just got to have faith that it's going to mean something, not just to our generation, but to the future generations coming up under us, like that they're going to have an even sturdier foundation to build upon, right? Like, them to my grandkids, right, will have a much easier conversation about abolition than we had right now. So I think, yeah, we have a lot to be hopeful about, and just know that nothing's going to happen overnight. And even if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, right, it's still going to happen. What we're doing right now definitely matters. And I think that's the important takeaway, right? It matters. What you do matters. What you do right now in this moment. And like, everybody want to talk about, well, if I was alive during slavery, if I was alive during the civil rights movement, if I was alive during the Black Panther movement, you're alive right now. You're alive right now. The same way what those people did during those times impact you right now, to the point where you talking about, if I was alive during that time, it's going to be people talking about, if I was alive during the time Trump was president, if I was alive during the time of the coronavirus pandemic, if I was alive during Barack Obama, all this stuff, right? People are going to think about like this era and time and have so much to say about it, but we're here right now. So what you do right now really matters.
Yeah. Well, it was such a pleasure talking to both of you, and really a treat to see you in person, Bella. Morgan, you too, but this was really cool. I want to thank you both and congratulate you. It's really a terrific film. Thanks very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you
for having us. And thank you for asking questions about the tribe. No one has asked that. No one asked Morgan what she thought. I never even asked Morgan what she
People check out the tribe. It's really
cool. Very, very thoughtful questions, and you were a good moderator. Like,
yeah, that's nice.
Interview.
Thanks, guys.
I approve.
Good. Thank you very much. And thanks, everyone. Take care.